The Zacks rank, value, momentum, growth, and income all factor into Zacks rank buys.
There's growth and income in two technology stocks that Ryan McQueenie here is going to tell us about, starting with Microsoft, right?
Yeah, neither of these ones are secrets or under the radars or hidden gems. These are two major companies. As you said, Microsoft was a big week for Microsoft. A couple days ago, during intraday trading, it passed Apple to become the world's largest publicly traded company, world's most valuable publicly traded company for a brief stretch there during intraday trading, as I said. Last time it was the most valued company at the end of a year was in 2002. The last time it passed Apple like this was about 6 years ago, I believe. So this is a big occasion. We typically just say Apple's the world's most valuable publicly traded company, and we don't even blink or hesitate there. But you know, the recent sell-offs and the volatility in the market has really repositioned some of this, and really the fact that Microsoft was able to kind of surpass Apple for a second was it's held up much better over this stretch of volatility and unpredictability, especially in tech. If we take a look here, this is just Microsoft and Apple's price performance on a year-to-date, or this is actually a one-year basis. As we can see, Microsoft's still up here, 31% gains over the past year. The recent selling has brought Apple all the way down to just 5% gains over the past year. So Microsoft holding up much better. It's fallen a little bit less from the highs than some of these other major stocks, a lot of the fangs, if you will. And there's, I think, a lot of things to like about Microsoft right now that explain why we have seen that trend. Most notably, to me, it's the diverse revenue stream. I think when people look at some of the question marks we have about global economic growth over the next few years, economic growth in the U.S. over the next few years, I'm still bullish about at least the domestic economy, of course, but it's always better to be exposed to more areas of that to kind of limit, a slowdown in one area might really impact a company like Apple, which is still at the end of the day, 62, 63, 64% of their revenue coming from one single product, the iPhone. Microsoft has everything from the Xbox to the Azure public cloud computing division to Microsoft Office and Office 365, the kind of cloud-based app system that they've really used as a growth catalyst the past couple of years, and far, far beyond those things. So the diverse revenue stream, I think we have seen people respond very well to recently. What do you think? That's an interesting point you just made. Yeah.
Are you concerned that they could ever become too diverse or too diluted in their product line?
I think when I get concerned about that for companies is when I see companies pushing into areas they aren't experts at. Areas where they're not going to be able to maybe they don't have the talent or the experience to succeed there. I think a good example of one where you have a question mark is Amazon snagging Whole Foods. Do you have the team in place that knows how to run brick and mortar stores like that? Obviously, still a lot of time to tell on that specific example. But to answer your question about Microsoft, no, I'm not so concerned about it because if you look at all the things I just named, Microsoft is a segment leader in many of those things. I mean, the Xbox is a pioneer in the video game industry. It's not, of course, not the only one. They're not the leaders. The PS4 has sold much more than the Xbox One, for example, but they've certainly been around and doing that for quite some time. Office, of course, really revolutionized personal computing, so a pioneer there. Have been in with cloud computing now for years and years and years. So it's a trusted name brand in all of these business areas. So I think that's one more thing to like about that diversity.
Okay, good points.
It's also one of the most consistent dividend performers in tech. It's kind of a tradition, celebratory moment every year when Microsoft adds about 3 to 5 cents to its dividend. It's been doing that basically the past decade consistently. Yield of about 1.7% right now, so you're not blowing it out of the water here for the income investors, but it's consistent, the cash flow is strong, the balance sheet is healthy, we feel good about that dividend. We love the growth. Let's look at the estimates. As you mentioned, growth in income we love to talk about. Estimates on the rise pretty strongly here. Couple negative revisions, but overall we can see the Zacks consensus has climbed for the current quarter and has climbed for the full year and has climbed for the upcoming fiscal year. And what are we looking for in terms of growth? Looking for earnings growth of 14% this current fiscal year, 11.5% next fiscal year. That's on 12% revenue growth, 10% revenue growth. Those are solid numbers for the world's most valuable publicly traded company, or one of them. And it is a Zacks rank number 2 buy right now based off of the positive revisions we just talked about.
Okay. Chip maker Intel is also piquing your interest. The stock's been moving up lately.
Yeah, moving up in an industry that hasn't been doing that. Obviously, the semiconductors have been under significant pressure for the better part of the entire year. There are some serious question marks about what people will call the end of the cycle, this kind of peak to trough move that we see in semiconductors as the cycle ends. I have argued many times that we're maybe not in a cyclical industry anymore because of the new secular growth trends that are around. Whether or not that's true, we won't know for years, and it'll be we look back and that peak to trough was nowhere near as bad as some have been in the past, and okay, this behaves a little bit differently right now. But it's expectations and it's investors looking ahead, and it's that uncertainty that's causing this volatility. So, you know, the thing with Intel and why it's been able to hold up while so many chip makers have been under pressure is, again, diverse revenue stream, one of the biggest companies in its industry in the world. It isn't one of these niche chip makers that has 3 or 4 or 5 big clients and that's it. You know, it's got exposure to enterprise level computing, cloud. It's also a consumer facing company as well. It's exposed to all of these possible secular growth trends, and I think that's why people feel a little bit more comfortable with Intel right now compared to some of the other chip makers. Also looking pretty strong fundamentally. Earlier this month announced a $15 billion increase to its stock repurchase program. Q3 results at the end of October were great. Revenue up 19%, which was an all-time high. Earnings soared 39%. Raised its fourth quarter earnings and revenue outlook. Didn't see a lot of beat and raise quarters from chip makers over this past earnings season. Intel, one of the few. Another reason to like Intel and have Intel stick out of the pack right now. And in terms of things that are important for income investors, trading at about 10.5%, 11% forward 12-month earnings. Pretty cheap, 2.5% yield, and then definitely still that growth there, 8.4% long-term annualized EPS growth is projected right now. Based on analyst estimates, it's also a buy ranked stock, as we can see here, 16 positive revisions for the current year, 16 positive revisions for the next year. That's no negative revisions for either of those periods. Now looking to end 2018 with earnings growth of nearly 31%.
Okay. Do you own either of these?
We have Microsoft in the income investor portfolio. Do not own Intel, and I own neither personally currently.
All right. Well, thanks for that. Speaking of technology stocks and tech issues, Ryan does a podcast that you can find on the podcast page of Zacks.com. It's called Tech Talk Tuesday, and it's got some interesting information in there. You probably want to check that out if you are into the technology issues and trends. Also, his Monday through Thursday live streaming video program, Free Lunch, is out there and available on most major streaming platforms. Check that out. A lot of interesting information there as well. With Ryan, I'm Terry Ruffalo.